Let it be. Me, your man, Louie T. Well, to Wednesday night football overtime. Ravens, Steelers, AFC North family business. If these two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And you may call this Ravens Steelers. I call that a sloppy mess we just watched on Wednesday. Now, I will say, I don't have any problems with Wednesday afternoon football. I actually quite enjoyed the timing of it, okay? However, that was as sloppy as it gets for a 10-0 team. Now, I told you, I haven't been impressed with the Steelers this year. I think they're a good football team. Well coached. You've got Ben Roethlisberger, wily veteran. But they have been far from what you come to expect from a team undefeated this late into the season. They don't look like the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't look like the Patriots of 2007. They don't look like one of those teams where you go, man, they can go undefeated. But you know what? That might be why they actually go undefeated. Who knows? I think someone's going to get them along the way. But this was not a good performance by the Steelers at all. They should have blown this Ravens team out that could not move the football. And I want to say this before we get back to the Steelers, because this is all about the Steelers. If Lamar Jackson gets hurt, what the hell are the Ravens going to do? Can we acknowledge that? Don't talk to me about all the guys that were out because of COVID. This offense was unwatchable for 3 7/8 quarters. Literally, you had 2 running backs in the backfield and 7 offensive linemen and 1 receiver on the field most of the game for the Ravens. This was a catastrophe offensively. So let me just say this. For all of the Lamar Jackson bashers and haters out there, you take him out of the mix, this is what they look like on offense. I don't want to hear any excuses. I want to talk about COVID. I want to talk about guys out of the game. Because if you would have dropped Lamar Jackson into this game without the 2 running backs, Dobbins and Ingram, with the same supporting cast that was out there, drop Lamar Jackson in, this is not a 19-14 game with the offense looking unwatchable. Okay? So for all of you Lamar Jackson bashers out there, understand what this man brings to the table. Now, back to the Steelers. The Steelers aren't going to play this way every single week. You must understand it. If this is your first time watching the Steelers this season, you're probably walking away saying, I don't know what all the fuss is about. They're not all that good. They didn't get to 11-0 for no reason. Okay, pump your brakes. Okay, they're a good football team. Now, they did not play 11-0 football tonight. All right, so on one hand, I understand if you haven't watched them all season and this is your first exposure, you're walking away saying, someone's going to beat them. They're not that good. If you've watched them enough times this year, and again, for most Washington fans, your 2 exposures to the Steelers, Dallas game, this game. And if you can throw in the Giants game if you like. The Steelers did not look impressive in any of those games. And this is why I said, against every NFC East opponent, the Steelers have struggled this year. They struggled against the Cowboys. They struggled against the Giants. They struggled against the Eagles. They may win all 4 of them. They may blow out Washington. They may lose to Washington. But I can tell you this. If you haven't watched the Steelers but 2 games this season, or 3 games if you watch the Giants game week 1, the first of the doubleheader, you're walking away saying, I'm not impressed. Every time I watch the Steelers, they don't look like a team that is unbeatable. This is a team that defensively, and they may have lost one of their best players today. And you hold your breath for Bud-Dupree. Bud-Dupree! But it doesn't look good. Anytime a guy goes down non-contact injury, he looked like he knew something was seriously wrong. I fear the worst. I'm hoping for the best for Bud-Dupree. But that didn't look good. You take him off of this defense, it changes drastically what they are. Because now, if I'm playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm double teaming J.J. Watt or T.J. Watt every single obvious passing situation. You know, number 90 is going to command all the attention in the world. if Cam Hayward gets me, if Stephon Tuitt gets me, so be it. If Alex Highsmith wants to get me, or Hightower, or whatever the hell his name is, the rookie out of Charlotte wants to get me, knock yourself up. It will not be TJ Watt without his running mate on the opposite side. So that could potentially be a massive injury moving forward for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this defense is ferocious. They showed you again today, because despite what you may think about the Ravens, they still ran it effectively. With Bob Griffin back there running, using his legs. Gus Edwards had a couple of good runs. Justice Hill had a couple of solid runs as well. They ran the football. But when they needed to toughen up, when they needed to stiffen up, when they needed to get a stop, they got it. They made the plays for the most part. That play before half was massive, as we got to see at the end. That was a huge play by Minkah Fitzpatrick. The referees allowed the Steelers to get away with a delay of game penalty. No doubt about it. And what I've seen is officials seem to not want to make that call in that situation. Don't want to. Guys are getting really egregious with these delay of game penalties. It used to be one thing to hold a guy up, stay on the pile, maybe hold on to the ball, for an extra second or two. Guys are getting really out of pocket with it now. You got guys laying on top of the pile, and guys laying on top of the guy that needs to get up for 6-7 additional seconds, and the officials are allowing it. They got to draw the line somewhere. I think this is the one that's going to make these officials wake up, and I think the NFL is going to send out a memo to these officials. Hey, we can't allow this shit to happen, because that clock should have stopped somewhere around 9 seconds, maybe even 16. There's no way that the Ravens should have gotten one more play out of that. They should have been able to spike that football, and they would have had to kick a field goal, because it would have been fourth down, but they would have gotten some points out of it. It just drastically changes the game, because that last touchdown, instead of it putting you down by 5, it puts you down by 2. A stop and you get the football back, and you got the best kicker in football, you might win the game 20-19. So they got to do something about that. But all in all, the Steelers, they were sloppy today. They weren't the best version of themselves. There were drop passes galore. Ben wasn't his most accurate. And let me tell you, I'm not even a Steelers fan, and I was holding my collective breath when he threw up that moon ball at the end. I'm like, Ben, what in the hell are you doing? Okay? Do not do that. If I were a fan of the Steelers, I'm yelling, hey, great job. Don't you ever do that shit again. I don't give a damn who you're throwing it to, or how strong his hands are, or how big his hands are. I don't give a shit. Don't do that again. Okay? Hell of a play by James Washington. In a sea of Ravens hands, he managed to come away with that football. He does have strong hands. We knew that coming out of Oak State, but that's not something you want your quarterback doing. And I will tell you this. In a league of 32 starters, Ben Roethlisberger is probably the only quarterback that would attempt that throw. Now, I know some quarterbacks that would attempt to think about that throw. I don't know if they'd actually try it. With that kind of touch, just lofting it up there. You got some guys like Fitty Fitty who just don't give a shit. Okay? And they'll throw up a hope and a prayer ball. I don't know of any, and there are some gunslingers in this league that think their arm is can't miss, and they'll sling it into some tight spot. That's just, you don't do that right there. With the game on the line, I don't know if there are many quarterbacks with the stones to do that. I can't think of many that with the game on the line is going to think that that's okay, except Ben Roethlisberger. I have to give him that. It took some stones to throw that football in that spot that he did and get it completed. Wow. But Ebron had at least 3 drops. Deontay Johnson had at least 2 or 3 drops in this game. It was rough. It's a rough game. Ben wasn't his most accurate. There was a deep ball down the sidelines to Chase Claypool that if he puts more air on, it might be a touchdown early in the ball game. He cut it short a little bit. There were some misses, for sure. But at the end of the day, they dominated this game. And I think the real problem with the way this game unfolded for the Steelers is they failed to convert on third downs. And we can sit here and talk about some of the drops. Some of those drops, if they're catches, they're still short of the first down any damn way. Like, I didn't necessarily love how they got the football out of Ben's hands so quickly. And they didn't even allow routes to develop. I don't know if it was a byproduct of them having no Marquise Pouncey and having some guys in and out of the lineup on the offensive line and really not being, really sure of what they were going to get with this Ravens pressure. Ben got walloped early in the game on a pressure right up the middle, and you're thinking your center should be able to pick that up, and they didn't. They just turned the guy loose on a blitz, and they probably said, you know what? Probably shouldn't allow Ben to take too many more of those. We'll just get it out of his hands quickly. So I thought there were a lot of plays where they threw it underneath the sticks and just said, hey, we hope our guy wins, and their guys didn't win. They either dropped it or they got tackled short of the sticks. And so you got to credit the Ravens' red zone defense, the Ravens' third down defense, really, in this game, for giving the Ravens a chance, because the offense was just abysmal. It was anemic. It literally was student body left, student body right, read option, and a smatter of handoffs to Gus Edwards. They were awful offensively. And again, you got to credit the Steelers for forcing the issue, not giving up anything easy, not giving Bob Griffin any confidence, but rather forcing the Ravens to have to do something they didn't want to do, and that's exclusively turn to the run game because the passing game really wasn't an option. So for those of you who haven't seen much of the Steelers, let me reiterate to you, top-notch defense, Hall of Fame quarterback, and a bevy of wide receivers that can kick your ass. Don't allow the drops today to cloud your judgment. They're legit at the receiver position. Got a really good tight end. He had some drops today. And Eric Ebron, Easy E, just fine. Okay? So, really good football team. But, again, if you're doubting the 11-0, the best I can offer you is that they played two divisions outside of their own that aren't any good. And that's what you do. You take advantage of it. They played the AFC East, arguably the worst division in the AFC conference, and the NFC East, without a doubt, the worst conference division in the entire league, not just in the NFC, in the entire league. So that's how you stockpile victories, is play the two worst divisions in their respective conferences and take advantage. That's what they've done. Or excuse me, not AFC East, AFC South. And take advantage. They've taken advantage of some bad divisions. That's what you do in this league. They still got the Colts on their schedule. They still got the Bills on the schedule. And we'll see how they navigate those games. But, don't overlook Washington. And we'll see what happens. But make no mistake about it. This is a good football team. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're better than the Chiefs. I don't. But I do think this is a really good football team, and I do think they're going to be in it when it's all said and done in the AFC. I do think that. That Post-Dupree injury, though, looms large, and that could be the make or break of this Steelers defense. Because, again, it's one thing to have one guy that can get it off the edge. It's another thing, and it changes everything when you got two. And they got a tag team back again. When you got two of those boys, it's hard, man. It's rough. Because you got one of the best in TJ Watt. Now you add Post-Dupree. And it's tough because, hey, you want to double TJ? Cool. Bud will get your ass on the other end. You want to double Bud? Okay, TJ's getting one-on-one. Cool. He'll take advantage. Can't double both of them. Now you can double TJ and feel really good. Like, hey, if Cam Hayward, if Stephon Tuitt, one of these boys, Tyson Alualu, if you're throwing on first down, if one of these boys wants to get me, good luck. You're going to need it. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that injury. That is a massive injury if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. One worth watching out for. Really want to see what the prognosis is there. I fear the worst. I fear the worst anytime I see a guy go down with a non-contact injury, especially a guy like Post-Dupree who suffered season-ending injuries that require surgery on his knee before. From the Ravens standpoint, I really don't have much to say. You know how I felt about Bob Griffin going into the game. I got everything I expected and then some. I knew exactly what he was going to do. He's not an NFL quarterback. I think this is more of an indictment on the people that think Lamar Jackson isn't any good. I think that's where the indictment is. And it's also another feather in the cap of this Ravens defense. For those of you who aren't really sure just how good the Ravens are defensively, they were the reason this game wasn't 36-10. They were the reason that this game didn't get out of control, because this had the makings of an ass thrashing. Stephon Tuitt with the ultimate sign of disrespect. You don't see this in the league, especially in a rivalry this heated between two foes that respect each other so much. Generally, you don't get players speaking out of pocket like this, where he essentially said, this should be an easy one. Boys, get your stats up. And I'm pretty sure the reason he felt that confident is because Bob Griffin was under center and there was no Lamar Jackson. Hell, I felt confident. Vegas felt confident. That's why the game went off as like a 12.5-point favorite. Did the Steelers. They didn't cover. For the second straight primetime game, a late backdoor absolute killer for those of you looking to cover. Anyhow, the Ravens are great. To me, they're one of the best defenses in the league. They're always searching for turnovers. You saw it again tonight. They were always reaching in the cookie jar. They can run the ball. And look, even against 10, 11-man boxes, where they said they're not throwing it. We don't respect their passing game. The Ravens still ran the football. Whether it was Bob Griffin, whether it was Trace McSorley, Justice Hill, or Gus Edwards, they still run the ball. Let me see how many yards they ran for tonight. Let's check out the box score real quick. They still ran for 129 yards on 28 carries, which equals out to 4.6 yards. With the Steelers knowing they're going to run the goddamn football, knowing that there's no chance, none in hell, that they could throw the football, they still ran it for damn near 5 yards a carry. That tells you all you need to know about their ability to run the football. So, I said all of that to say this. Ravens defense, good enough for them to make the postseason. I will not count the Ravens out. As a matter of fact, I'm still going on record as saying they're going to make the postseason. They're going to find their way in. I'm not buying the Dolphins. I'm still not quite sure about the Browns, even though their schedule looks like it's too damn easy for them to miss out. But I'm definitely not buying the Dolphins. That's the one team I'm looking at. I'm saying, you seriously trying to go to the postseason this year? You really think you're going to make the postseason? You know the rules to the game. Ryan Fitzpatrick was your starter. You can't make the playoffs. And they know that. But they're still trying to sneak in the back door. I think the Ravens are coming for them eventually. So we'll see how the Dolphins finish up the season. I don't trust the Dolphins at all whatsoever. We'll see what happens. I still think this Ravens team, when it is all said and done, will be in the postseason by hook or by crook. And it'll be because of that defense. It'll be because of Lamar Jackson. It'll be because of this run game and a team that's well coached by John Harbaugh. So the moral of tonight's story is they don't have anything else outside of 8 at quarterback. You take 8 away from the Ravens at the quarterback position, and you could say that about probably 2/3 of this league. You take away their starting quarterback, they're in trouble. But it even looms larger in Baltimore because we saw what they have out there tonight in Bob Griffin. It was not pretty. Trace McSorley, not much better. Man, I think I timed that pass he threw to Hollywood. That shit went like a punt. I think I timed it at 5.3. It took so goddamn long to come down. No arm strength whatsoever. So they got nothing, man. They got nothing at quarterback outside of Lamar Jackson. But they fought their asses off. Why? Because they're well coached and they have a defense. And in this league, if you can run it, which the Ravens can, you can play some defense, which the Ravens do, you have a chance to go anywhere and win. And that's why they almost went to Pittsburgh, and it didn't feel like it. If you watch this game, it didn't feel like 19-14. Not until that damn touchdown, it didn't. Shit got tight then. But at the end of the day, this is a quality Ravens team. They've fallen on hard times. They'll be back. I'm not counting them out, and I expect them to make the postseason. Let's get to your comments. Got a comment here from my man, King of the North. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. King of the North writes, exactly how I want it. Give Washington a chance to be the better team. The 72 Dolphins toast. I wanted them to come into the game undefeated against Washington because for me, you got nothing to lose, everything to gain. We're not supposed to win the game, right? I think we fare much better in those types of situations where there isn't any pressure on us. We just go in loosey-goosey. Whatever happens, you just let the chips fall where they may. I also think this Steelers team, there's a cockiness, a little bit of an edge to them that I think they might think they can overlook us. Normally I don't think that way of a Mike Tomlin team, but that comment by Stephon Tuitt and the way that they came out and played, I really feel like those players felt like Stephon Tuitt felt. I think they came out expecting the Ravens to lay down for them. I really do. And I don't know why the hell they would think that in this heated rivalry where everything is earned, nothing is given. I thought they would know better. But this was a flat Steelers team that looked like they thought the Ravens were going to lay down for them. And they had it all twisted up. They had the game all twisted up sideways. Well, I hope they do the same thing. I hope we're not going to. I know this for a fact. I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I've watched enough football to know we will not get that same Steelers team come Monday. They will be better prepared. They'll have more players available. And I'll take it a step further. This has nothing to do with what I'm saying right now. I need to say this before I forget. I would much rather see James Conner than Benny Snell. Even though Benny Snell has a fumbling issue, I'm well aware. He's the much better back between the two of them. Give me Slowpoke Conner, please, for 200. That's the daily double, okay? I'll double down on that statement. Please give me James Conner. Slow as molasses. Don't have to worry about him going any goddamn where. He'll be right there where we left him. He's running in quicksand. Give me James Conner, please. So I'm glad he'll be ready to go next week. I hope Marquise Pouncey, however, is not. More likely than not, he will be. But they just identified him and put him on the COVID list today. I'm hoping that means he's out of the next game. I'd love to get my hands on that center that I saw. I think we've got a chance to get some pressure on Ben if that guy's playing center for the Steelers. Now, I will say this. Ben gets it out of his hands very quickly. And if he's going to get it out of his hands that quick, probably not going to be able to get to Ben. It is what it is. But I'd love nothing more than to end that O. To change that O for the Steelers. King of the North, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. King of the North, greatly appreciate you. My man, King of the North, writes, Pitt, my number 2 favorite. Ben used to be great off schedule, but now the ball ain't gone in 3 seconds and bad stuff happens. Can't win a chip like that. He's just not as mobile as he used to be. That's the biggest thing is he's old. Father Time is undefeated and still undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Father Destructive Time. Nobody, and I mean nobody, defeats Father Time. And Ben is one of those guys that has been slowed down significantly by Father Time. So the off schedule doesn't look like it once did, but he can still get you off schedule if you're not careful. But yeah, he's more of a on schedule, get it out of his hands quick type of guy now than he ever has been in his career. And they seem to function well in that environment. But as you saw today, Ben will throw some shit up. You get a little bit of pressure on him, Ben will toss you a couple bones. All right, I watched that Titans game. Some ill-advised throws in there, including with the game on the line. He decides to throw one over the middle of the football field. Yeah, the defender's not looking, but that's a really risky throw. He gets batted in the air and picked off. Don't do that. Well, Ben does that. So, like I said, Ben, look, the throw to Deontay Johnson at the end of the game, that's money. He's got to catch that. Ben can do that still. So, I understand what you're saying, but I wouldn't discount Ben. I just wouldn't do it. I got another super chat here from Brendan McCloskey. Thank you for the super chat, Brendan McCloskey. Greatly appreciate you. Brendan writes, I think that Gibson and McKissick could run all over this defense as long as we don't turn the ball over. Washington will have a chance. Well, you say as long as we don't turn it over. Well, we specialize in turning the football over. I can't tell you the last game. I can't tell you the last time we didn't have a game with the turnover. Was it the Dallas game the first time around? Because ever since that bye week, we've turned it over in every single game. 5 against the Giants. 1 for sure, the Terry fumble against the Lions. The following week after that against Cincinnati, you got the Alex Smith pick right before the half. And then last week we had the pick in the third quarter. So we turn the ball over. That's what we do. We turn the football over. So us not turning it over, highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. But we'll see what happens. I won't go as far as to say that we're going to be able to run all over these guys. I think there is some space and some opportunity to make some things happen, but we're going to have to be creative, and we're going to have to pick our spots. You're not going to just line up and run it against this Steelers football team. And they were missing one of their better run-stopping defenders in Stephon Tuitt in this game, who should be back for our game. So, don't just pump the brakes. Wise man told me, hey, you need to pump your brakes and drive slow, homie. Drive slow, homie. So, look, when you see them hazard lights and nowhere to go, drive slow, homie. I see the hazard lights on, and I know ain't nowhere to go. I'm going to drive slow, all right? So, before you get excited and think about the possibilities of what we can do with this guy and that guy, just know you didn't see the Steelers at full strength. Now, again, they'll be missing, whether it's a season-ending injury or not, they will not have Bud Dupree next week. That's a massive loss for them. It is. But I think they are vulnerable. I've watched every Steelers game this season. They are vulnerable, but they also force turnovers. They're the best in the league at forcing turnovers. They forced them at an alarming rate this season. The best in the business. We're one of the worst at giving it up. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, if you ask me. So we'll talk about that a little bit later down the road. But anyhow, got some comments. I'm going to take these before we get out of here. I got one here from Gregory Lightbody. That Dupree injury could help Washington, but they still have guys like Watt and Tuitt. Absolutely. I mean, you can't sleep on the rest of their defense, but that drastically changes who they are defensively without Bud Dupree, without a doubt. And I've talked about that already. But they still have other guys, as you mentioned. Captain Spartan 04 says, run the ball. That's what pissed me off about this game. I'm not worried the close score, the defense. There wouldn't be so many drop passes if we ran the ball, been through 51 times. Well, I think you felt comfortable throwing the ball because you didn't trust the ability to run the ball in this football game. And I think there was a method to the madness of Ben throwing it 51 times because you felt more confident about the short passing game. And I understand that a lot of the Ravens defenders that were out on the defensive side of the football were in the front seven and that the secondary was at full strength. That being said, the strength of your offense is your passing game. It is not your running game. None of your running backs scare anybody around the league. And so you probably felt more comfortable throwing the football to advance it. And you really had success, to be honest with you. Minus the drops. I didn't necessarily love some of the third down calls. 3rd and 5, and you're throwing a 2-yard, kind of screen type of pick play, and Marcus Peters sniffs it out and tackles Chase Claypool before he can even get going for like 2 yards on 3rd and 5 or 6. Like, I'm not in love with that kind of stuff. Ebron down in the red zone, Ben's checking it down to him, and you need him to make Chuck Clark miss. Well, he doesn't catch it first, but even if he does, Chuck Clark's going to make that tackle 4 yards short of the first down. He's going to kick a field goal any damn way. So I didn't necessarily love some of the play calling. But that being said, I thought the short passing game worked. I thought it was effective. I thought you moved the football down the field. When guys caught the football, it seemed to be in timing and rhythm. The short passing game was an extension of the run game. I didn't have a problem with it because when you look at Benny Snell's Jr.'s numbers, at one point it was 16 for 60. I don't want to count the carries at the end when you're trying to run the clock out. At one point it was 16 for 60. There was one good run in there where he made like 2 defenders miss and was able to get up the field. And then he had to run against Marcus Peters at the end where he ran him over for about 8. You take those 2 runs away, and I know you can't take them away. But that one run that I'm talking about was like 16, and that last run was 8. That's 24 yards. You didn't have that much success on the ground. Matter of fact, let's look at your rush totals in this game. 20 for 68, 3.4 yards a carry. And Snell did end up with 16 for 60. So you weren't having success on the ground. I think that's the reason you didn't run it. I didn't have a problem with them not running the football. Ben was very successful throwing the ball. Short passing game was eating the Ravens alive. I thought it was successful. Guys just got to catch the football. Legacy 2901 says, a lot of missed opportunities for Pittsburgh, multiple drops, miscues. I think it's good for them to have a wake-up call. I don't know if they necessarily viewed this as a wake-up call. They viewed it as, hey, it's the Ravens. This is the kind of things that happen against the Ravens. We'll take it any way we can get it. We're 11-0. I don't think they're going to say, hey, came close to losing. Like, this wasn't Jacksonville that they just stuck. Had this been Dallas like 3 weeks ago when they barely snuck by the Cowboys, I think it was the same score, 19-14. It might have been, I think they ultimately won that game. What was the score in that game? Was it 19-14? Might have been 19-14. Anyway, if this were the Cowboys that they just snuck by, then yeah, okay. All right, yeah, this is a wake-up call. But it was the Ravens. They respect the Ravens. I don't think they're going to look at it. They're going to say, look, we got to play better. But I don't think they're going to say, oh, this is the wake-up call we needed. I don't know about that. Captain Spartan 04 says, I still want us to lose a game so we can get humbled. Might be against your Washington so we can still hold the number 1 seed. You've been singing that song. You're not going to use that reverse psychology, Jedi mind trick bullshit on me, Captain Spartan, okay? I know what you're doing. You've been doing it all season. Oh, man, we got to look out for Houston. I think we're going to lose to the Eagles. You've been doing this shit. Man, the Titans are tough. I think we can lose this game. You've been doing it all year, man. You're not going to fool me with your bullshit. But you did say something factual in there, which is at some point, if you want to relieve yourself of the pressure of being undefeated, it's the best thing you can do. When you listen to teams that go on to win the Super Bowl that started the season off, 13-0 or 12-0 or whatever the case may be, they always tell you, man, the best thing that happened to us was finally getting a loss because the pressure began to mount week after week. As we got later into the season, it started to wear on us. You start to feel like you got to be perfect. Maybe that's a part of the drops, is that guys are trying to be too perfect. I just think it was a lack of concentration. I'm not going to put this on the perfect mark, the first Steelers team to start 10-0 in a season or any of that nonsense. I just think they thought the Ravens were going to come in here and lay down for them without Lamar Jackson and all the guys that were out. They thought they were going to trample over them, and they were in for a rude awakening. Asan Moore says, do you think the Ravens will put Trace McSorley in as the backup from now on? I don't know. I honestly don't know. That Trace McSorley touchdown pass wasn't a great pass. Like, I don't think they feel any differently leaving this game. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not sure. Asan Moore also says, I think Washington will give the Steelers for the first time, and it will be a defensive battle. We'll get the Steelers for the first time. We haven't beat the Steelers since 91. I want you guys to keep that in mind as well. Just for all of you, the Washington's going to win. Mike Tomlin's undefeated against us, and we haven't beaten the Steelers in over 30 years. So just in case, what is it? 2001, damn near 30 years. It's approaching 30. Next year it'll be 30 years. It's 29 years right now. So good luck with that. Asan Moore says, it feels good to see RG3 suck and be trash for 3.5 quarters. Do you think that the Steelers offense needs more help or just cut some players? Nah, they don't need to do anything other than continue to be what they are. It was like I said, it was a rough game. They had some drops and things, but they're still a good football team. And I don't have any. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say I don't have any ill will, in terms of my feelings as a football player towards Robert Griffin III, because I do. However, I don't want to see the man struggle. I just expect to see him struggle because I know what kind of a football player he is. If he went out there and lit it up, I would say, wow, that's awesome, man. Maybe you have grown as a football player, but I know what I saw. And I know what he is as a football player. And that's not going to change. So what I saw today is it's an extension of what we saw in Washington. The only thing that I was disappointed about is that it took him to be out of the league for a couple of years with nobody ringing his phone, beating his door down and get him to join their squad and give him an opportunity to start, for him to realize this is what I got to do to survive in this league. If you would have just did that shit in Washington with the Shanahans, you would have been the man in Washington. But your head got big and couldn't anybody tell you any goddamn thing, and you had to be humbled to realize that you still got to be a damn running back. Which is stupid. Hank Midas, I like watching Wednesday Night Football after getting off of work. Could get used to it. Well, don't. The NFL isn't going to do anything there. But, like I said, it was pretty damn refreshing. I must say. I enjoyed it too, Hank. I don't think the NFL is going to, do anything here. And you have to also keep in mind, it's one thing to have guys going off of, 5 days of rest, or 4, really, with the Thursday. It's another thing to have guys going off of 3 days of rest. You can't keep cutting into that. In order to play a Wednesday game, you'd have to have that team play the following, the previous Thursday or something like that. Anyway, it's not happening. But it's 2020. It was pretty cool. Captain Spartan 04 says, by the way, it is BS that we do have to play 3 games in 12 days, but nobody cares. Just shut up and play no matter how much you get the short end of the stick. I talked about this before the season started. I remember I had the podcast episode titled Stop Bitching because we knew this was going to be a part of the 2020 season. It was not going to be fair. I told you that, and that's why I put out that disclaimer, stop bitching in advance, because some teams are going to get the short end of the stick. Steelers are one of them. This is the second time they've had a game postponed, and they haven't done anything wrong. So, with that being said, it's rough. It is. But, no, as you mentioned, nobody cares. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. It is what it is. The 49ers got kicked out of their home stadium. Nobody feels sorry for you. Shut up and play. And you're absolutely spot on right about that. It sucks that you got 3 games in 12 days. That's not cool. And again, it sucks even more because you didn't do anything wrong. If you were the Ravens, I'd say, shut up. You're the reason you got 3 games in 12 days. But you didn't do anything. And they adjusted the schedule to accommodate the Ravens, and now you're the one that is really, really on the short end of this stick. But it is what it is. I advocated for the NFL to have teams that had these kinds of outbreaks, like Tennessee earlier in the season, like the Ravens here. They got to forfeit. I'm not going to be juggling around all these different games and moving people's schedule around to accommodate you because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So, it's rough, but it is what it is. Hassan Moore says, without Post-Dupree, this defense is still pretty good, but it says now our O-line will not get beat up as much. Hey, Lou, now can we say we have a chance to get them for their first loss? Absolutely, but again, Post-Dupree, hell of a defender. He's not what makes or breaks this defense. So, they still got a bunch of other really good guys like Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, TJ Watt, and the list goes on and on and on that play exceptional football for them. They're going to be just fine. All right, they'll survive. They might not thrive, but they'll survive without Post-Dupree. Captain Spartan 04 says, can't wait to sit back and see your Washington fans sit and think they can cakewalk over Pittsburgh. Our defense is going to bounce back. You also better tell your fam Juju is going nowhere. I don't think Juju's going anywhere either. However, I will say with the emergence of Chase Claypool, Juju seemed to be an afterthought this season. Going into the year, he seemed to be the focal point of the offense. I'd say Deontay Johnson is the high volume guy, and I'd say that Chase Claypool is the big play guy and the touchdown guy. And so, like, Juju's now your tough guy over the middle, third down and 6. He'll get you 7, but I don't know if that's what he's looking to do or not. But I don't think he's going anywhere. The Steelers usually do a damn good job of taking care of their own. And he is the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster, he is Steelers. Like, when you think of the Steelers, he's one of the guys on the offensive side of the football that comes to mind first and foremost. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And let me, on behalf of Washington fans everywhere, let me say this to you, Captain. We don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I don't know who put that seed in your head. I don't know who put that battery in your back. But let me take that battery out of your damn back. Nobody thinks that you're 11-0. We're 4-7. Nobody thinks there's a cakewalk anywhere unless it's you guys destroying us. Okay? So let me just go ahead and make sure we clarify something here and get that straight right away. All right? Or as they say across the pond, straight away. Let's make sure we get that correct straight away. Asan Moore, do you think the Ravens are out of the playoffs? Nope, I already answered that question. I still think they're going to make the postseason. I already answered that. RG3 hashtag says, refs was working for the Steelers. They missed face masks and holding on Ebron. It goes both ways. They missed a ton of calls. I can tell you this. They missed more calls on behalf of the Steelers than they did the Ravens. So I will grant you that. I know you're a Browns fan. You can't stand the Steelers, nor the Ravens, but you can't stand the Steelers more so than the Ravens. I thought the officials missed a bunch of stuff in the game, but at the end of the day, the Steelers were the better team. With those calls, without those calls, they still were going to win the game. Period. Asan Moore says, do you think the Ravens will put in Dez Bryant, fire Greg Roman? I repeat, fire Greg Roman. Dez Bryant was in the game. Did not have a catch, but he was in the game. And they signed him to a contract. He is now on the active roster for good. So Dez Bryant is there. Definitely there. Captain Spartan 04 says, nah, Ben been throwing quick passes all year. Facts. It's our way of spreading out the field. Bud should be healthy by playoffs. Alex is a baller too, by the way. Don't doubt him. Alex is a solid football player. I'm not afraid of Alex. I'm not. I like him a lot, though. I liked him coming out of Charlotte when I scouted him. I said, this guy's got a little juice to him. There's a little something there. He's not Bud Dupree. And you can acknowledge that as well. So, Alex might be the reason that you were thinking about allowing Bud to leave in free agency. It was the reason you slapped the franchise tag on him to get one more year out of him before you let him walk. And you give Alex some more time this season before having him step into that spot. However, he's not Bud Dupree. So, there's that. And yeah, that's what Ben's been doing all season long. Again, fully aware. It's what you guys do. Brian say, Robert looked like Bobby Griffin today. May his NFL career rest in peace. And look, as long as he doesn't have to play, Bob Griffin is allowed to stay on the sideline as long as he likes. It's when he has to play that it becomes a problem. And we've seen this before with other backups around the league. Jim Sorgi comes to mind. All those years backing up Peyton Manning. Didn't have to play. He finally gets in, and they realize this guy stinks. Curtis Painter, same thing. Never had to play. Finally gets in, and they say, man, this guy is awful. What are we doing with this guy on the roster? As long as he doesn't have to play, and the thought of him backing up Lamar because he's got a similar skill set, and we saw he can still run. Like, that hasn't diminished. The track speed is still there. It's still prevalent. But we also saw that he's also capable of getting hurt. That's still there as well. And I also see that he's still lying to the coaching staff and the team medical physicians on the sidelines by telling them, yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. No, you're not, Bob. You pulled a hammy. We saw it. And it is what it is. 2012 all over again. Asan Moore says, how many sacks do you think Washington will get? Not many, because Ben gets it out of his hands extremely quick. So I'm going to venture to say not many. If any, 2 at most. That's the number that I would put it at. The over-under is at 2. I'd actually go with the under there. Brian says, Trace McSorley looked nice, though. Did he? Were we watching 2 different games? Because I saw 2 of 7 with the big ball that I clocked at 5.3 hang time to Hollywood Brown. I saw him with a couple of nice runs, but we know Trace McSorley's a good athlete. That's not a surprise. I'm interested in Trace McSorley, the passer. Wasn't impressed with that. So we must have been watching 2 different games, though. So that's cool. Niners fan says, what up, Lou? We bat like cooked crack. Can't wait for week 16 versus Arizona for a shot at the postseason, but we're going to have to do it without Jimmy at quarterback. You're not dead, but you're not alive either. You know what? I'm done with you, Niners fan, because you told me that I could never call what's its face? I can't remember his name. A competent backup quarterback, a solid backup quarterback. You told me I could never call him that. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to have any 49ers discussions about your football team with him at quarterback because you told me he's not a good quarterback. I can't have any discussions with you about him being quarterback because you told me he's not a good quarterback. But every time I see him, when he's look, that's what you want out of a backup quarterback. That's what you guys have to understand. All right, is he comes in the game and he's going to do something. Now, that something could be negative, 3 interceptions, throw you out of the game. That something could be positive. But you want a guy that's going to come in and he's going to do something. That's why Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of the best backups in the league, because when he comes in the game, he's not coming in and just hand it off and every now and again throw a pass here or there. He's coming in and he's chucking the bitch. And he's going to make something happen. And it may happen for the other team or it may happen for his team. But he's going to make something happen. Those are the guys that make the best backup quarterbacks. Not Colt McCoy. Okay? Colt McCoy is going to come in. He's going to try to manage the game. Those are the guys that are going to lose games for you. They're not going to make anything happen unless your defense is going to make something out. Unless you got an elite run game, which you do. But he's better than you gave him credit for, and I keep telling you, stop disrespecting him. Anyway, Brian says, watch the football team will beat Steelers. I'm convinced, Lou. Make sure to read this live so they know. Maybe that's why Captain Spartan feels the way that he does. I didn't say that, Captain. It wasn't me. It just so we clarify that was Brian that said that. It was not me. I'm Shaggy over here. It wasn't me. Okay. Just making sure we're clear on that. Asan Moore says, do you think if Washington beats the Steelers, there we go again, that the Chiefs win out, Mahomes will get MVP? Why does it have to be if Washington beats the Steelers? Why can't it be if the Bills or the Colts beat the Steelers? All you're essentially saying is if the Steelers don't finish with the best record, the Chiefs do, and Mahomes continues to ball out, will he get? Why can't you just say that? If the Steelers lose a game, why does it have to be if Washington beats them? I don't know if that should matter or not. Whether they've got the best record in the AFC or not. If they go 15-1, if they go 14-2, and they're the 2 seed, who gives a shit? If Mahomes is doing what he's doing, he should be the MVP. There shouldn't be any stipulation to it. If he's the best quarterback in the game, which we can all admit and agree that he's the best player in the league, give him the MVP. What's the discussion about? I don't understand. Captain Spartan says, Ravens just know how to run against my Steelers. Don't get too hyped. How quickly you forget we shut down Derrick Henry. Again, don't talk to me about your defense. I'm well aware. Okay? Talk to the other Washington fans that think they're going to do this and do that. Not to me. I'm aware. I told you if we're going to move the football against this defense, we're going to have to get creative. The only matchup I feel good about is Terry McLaurin against any of your corners. None of your corners scare me. Not a single one. Not Joe Hayden, not Steven Nelson, none of those guys. Not Cameron Sutton, nobody. So that's the only matchup I feel damn good about. Every other matchup on the field, I don't feel great about. Not a single one. Jonathan Riches says, Lou, the Browns and Ravens play on Monday night in 2 weeks. That could decide a playoff spot. By then, Baltimore should be healthier, so that'll be a hell of a game. I still think that the Ravens are one of the bullies on the block in the AFC North. I think the Browns still have that little brother complex. And I think that the Ravens are going to be able to take it to the Browns. But we'll see. I don't know where that game is. I don't remember when the first ass whooping took place, where it was. Was it in Cleveland or not? If it's in Baltimore, that's going to help the Ravens definitely. But as we've seen before, the Browns have no problems going to Baltimore and winning. It did it last year with Chubb. So that could decide a playoff berth. Although I think with the schedule the way it is, I think the Browns don't even need that game to get in. That'll be a bigger game for the Ravens because the Ravens have a much smaller margin for error than that of the Browns at this moment. So we'll see. That like you said, that's going to be a big game. It may be for both teams. It'll definitely be for the Ravens. That is for sure. With the way that things have shaken out to this point. Got a super chat from Fresh Montana. Thank you for the super chat, Fresh Montana. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, bro, we definitely beating the Steelers Monday. Watch. Keep doing your thing. Oh, my God. You guys are killing me. You did this against Detroit. Stop it. Stop already. You guys are killing me. All right. Now, okay, Captain, you're right. Now, they validated what you were saying, which is this whole cakewalk situation and scenario you posed in your comment earlier where you say, hey, for all these Washington fans that think it's going to be a cakewalk, and I quickly dispelled that notion. Like, I don't know where you get that from. Now I see where you got it from because everyone out here thinks that all these Washington fans are delusional for a second. You win 2 games in a row against 2 of the worst teams in the league, and all of a sudden, and look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not more confident now than I was 2 weeks ago because I am. Much like a lot. 41-16 will do this to you. Okay? I'll admit that. But at the same time, I understand that 11-0, vastly different than 2-7-1 and 3-7. Okay? I am well aware of that fact. So, for whatever it's worth. Let's see. Valor Watt says, if Steelers shut down, Gibson McKissick is going to have a day. Okay. If you say so. Captain Spartan says, and my Steelers defense specializes in creating turnovers, LOL. I already stated that. Hassan Moore says, do you think it will be a hard day for Scott Turner against this Steelers defense? Maybe. I don't think that it's going to be an easy day. But can he put together a game plan that can be successful? Absolutely. We'll see what happens, though. Captain Spartan says, I'm not Jedi mind tricking you. I've been just as shocked as anyone that we're winning some of these games and how we're winning some of these games. Yeah, but I know what you're doing here. Okay, you say you're not doing it, but you've been doing this all year long. You've been playing the all shucks. You know what you've been doing? You've been doing the Dabo Sweeney thing. All shucks. I don't really know how we're doing this. I don't know. I thought we were going to lose to the Titans. I thought we were going to lose to the Texans. Thought the Eagles might have got us. You've been doing the all shucks routine. It's old now. Like nobody, when Dabo does that shit, hey, Dabo, get the hell out of my face with that bullshit, okay? And that's kind of how I'm doing you right now. Like, hey, look, you don't have to do the act with me. We know each other well enough now. Your team is good. You're a really good team. You don't have to do the all shucks act. You're not sneaking up on anybody. You're not fooling anybody. You're a good football team. You're 11-0. You earned 11-0. Nobody gave you 11-0. So you don't have to try to convince yourself that, oh, man, you guys got a shot. Like, if you think you're going to bash our brains in, just say it. Just say it. Because it very well may happen. I just watched you force like 19 turnovers versus Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. Like, we are capable of having one of those types of games. We're not that far removed from one of those games against the Giants. So, and it was the same type of scenario. Long layoff, uber confident after the last win, a dominant performance over Dallas. And what did we do? We turned it over 5 times. It's too eerily similar for me. So, I'm not going to sit here and give in to all of these Washington fans that just all of a sudden now think we're going to beat the Steelers. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. I'm staying away from it. Gregory Lightbody says, do you think the Steelers will pay Dupree, and if not, should Washington go after him? No, Washington will not go after him. I don't think the Steelers had any intentions of paying him. I think that's why they slapped the franchise tag on him, just like they did with Le'Veon Bell, just to get that one more year out of him. And I think they have a guy in training, in waiting, in Alex Hightower. I think it's Highsmith. I continue to forget which one it is. I think they feel good about him, and I think that's who they're going to ultimately roll with. And this injury to Bud Dupree doesn't help his situation at all. If this is a torn ACL, and that's what I fear, I haven't heard any reports. Let me see if there's any news out. Initial test. This is from Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. Initial test on Steelers linebacker Bud Dupree indicates a torn ACL, sources tell me and Kiki Kabwala. Test coming to confirm, but the team expects him to be lost for the season. Crushing for the team and Dupree, who is playing on the franchise tag and slated to be a free agent. So there you have it. I told you, I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I have watched enough football to know when I've seen one of those go down. And again, I'm not a doctor, but that looked like a torn ACL to me, and initial tests reveal as such. So, crushing blow. Captain Spartan seemed to think that was some kind of knee sprain. I don't know what he thought this was. Oh, he'll be back in time for the playoffs. No, the hell he won't. Not with a non-contact injury like that. There is no he'll be back for the playoffs. And I don't think the Steelers were planning on paying him before the injury. Now, after that injury, I think it's a situation where he'll have to sign a prove-it deal with somebody, a one-year prove-it deal. Maybe it'll be back in Pittsburgh for a one-year prove-it deal. We'll see. But no, Washington, they're not looking to sign a big money free agent as a defensive end or outside linebacker. Remember, Bud Dupree's more of a 3-4 guy as an outside backer. I mean, he can put his hand in the dirt too. I don't think he has any issues with doing that. But at the end of the day, Washington has some young studs off the edge. They're not looking to spend money on somebody else coming from the outside in when they are going to eventually have to pay their young studs some money. So they're not looking to invest in that position. If anything, they would draft a guy that would not cost them a bunch of money to bring in as more depth along that defensive line if need be. Kevin Guvera says, initial tests on Bud Dupree indicate ACL torn per Mike Garafolo. And I just read that, so thank you for that. But Gregory Lightbody, same thing, was telling me the same thing. So Kevin the PRF says, best recovery wishes to Bud Dupree, but I'm checking his crib for a hot tub time machine. He's got the most 70s football name in the past 20 years. Absolutely, he does. That's definitely Highsmith. I think I called him Hightower and then I said Highsmith. Did I say Highsmith? I think I said Highsmith. Captain Spartan says, well, next man up, Alex Highsmith has been showing lots of splashes. Let's see if he can actually do it as a starter. Next man up. Kevin the PRF, Captain Spartan can relax a bit. Short passes eat the middle of our defense for lunch. Washington needs turnovers to have any shot. I agree. We do not have the Ravens defense. Our defense doesn't look anything like theirs. Our linebackers aren't any good. So those short passes are going to have a much bigger impact against us than it did against the Ravens. So I am 110% on board with that statement made by Kevin, the PRF. Captain Spartan says, hopefully Bud still gets paid by someone else, though. He's a baller, and he's worked hard to redefine his technique and no longer can be considered a bust by most fans. As I mentioned before, I don't think the Steelers had any intentions of bringing him back before the injury. Now, post-injury, there's no chance. Captain Spartan says, Joey Porter and Harrison was holding Bud back a lot, it turned out. I'm definitely sad we lost him. I saw him grow at Kentucky, then get selected to Pittsburgh. Really wish him the best. Likewise. Farrah Cody says, what's up with these Washington fans talking crazy? I don't know, Farrah. Your guess is as good as mine. They have lost their damn minds, okay? They talking loco. Insane in the membrane. Insane in the brain. They done lost their brains. Got no brain. They're insane. I don't know what the hell they got going on tonight. But I tell you what, it's Thanksgiving. A lot of punches is out there. And I think they're sipping too hard on some of that Thanksgiving brew. And look, 40. I told you 41 to 16 will do that to you, though. You know? So we'll see what happens. JP says, this is the game I want the most since the schedule came out, even more than Dallas. You know what was crazy? I do have to point this out, is that when the schedule first came out, I had more people say the upset game for Washington is going to be at Pittsburgh. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's so far down the line in terms of the schedule. That's not week 5. That's like week 13. But I had a lot of people say when the schedule came out, and I can actually attest to this, that Washington was going to beat the Steelers in week 13. I had countless people say that. For whatever reason, they circled that game on the schedule as that's the game we're going to upset a team. They didn't know that, at that time when the schedule came out, that the Steelers were going to be the only undefeated team left in the league, and that it would be a massive upset if it were to take place. But we knew the Steelers were going to be good. As long as Ben Roethlisberger was healthy, they were going to be a good football team. And a lot of people thought then, and they probably feel good about it now that the football team is playing better. But we shall see. Farrah Cody says, these are the same Washington fans that just a couple of weeks ago saying tank LOL. They are weird, bro. You're not lying. I'd go out on record as to about 55% of the people that are screaming we're going to beat Pittsburgh or this team could go 7-9. All of it. There's the same fans that just 3 weeks ago were talking about tanking. 4 weeks ago we're talking about, hey, we need to get a top 2 pick, top 5 pick. So you're right. I can't deny any of that. Can't do it. Captain says, don't think we're bashing your heads in. I respect Washington too much to say that. Only team I disrespect, he says, is the Browns and the Bengals, even though I respected them this year. Booker says, I'm one of the more optimistic Washington fans, but this is the cycle we've seen before. We hype it up, get crushed, and everyone is mad like we had a chance or something. This is why I always talk about having that happy medium as a fan base. This is why I always talk about expect the worst, but hope for the best. This is why, because once you allow them to suck in, and I've said this is a different team. It's Ron Rivera. It's a different day in Washington. All of that is true, but you can't undo 20 years of the same type of behavior. If you have gone through this over the last 20 years over and over and over again, and then you just expect it to magically change in one season, I look, it may. I can't I told you, I'm never one to rain on anybody's parade. If you've got a dream, dream big. I'm just telling you, I've been through enough of these to know better. I don't trust Washington in this spot. But then again, I didn't trust them on Thanksgiving either. And look what they did. So I'm not the one to be the voice of reason to tell someone not to feel confident. Because I wasn't confident on Thursday and they won. But I've been the one all season when we were 1 and whatever, when we were 2 and whatever. I was the one always trying to be the voice of reason. We don't stink. We're not going to have a top 5 pick. I was the one banging that drum, even when it looked really bad. I was the one banging the drum. We're not as bad as you think. And now people are starting to get on board. I just know this is not a spot to feel uber confident against the Steelers. I damn sure don't. So, for what that's worth. Thank you for that, Booker. That's a really good comment. JP says, still got the nasty taste of the nasty ass taste of 2016 Monday night in my mouth. We owe these damn Steelers. Yeah. I went through the list of those games. And Mike Tomlin against us, he's 3-0. I go all the way back to 2008 in that Monday night terrible towel fiasco where they took over the stadium. We were 6-2. They came to our stadium. They hurt Jason Campbell, and they beat the shit out of us on a Monday night. Destroyed our season. Hey, look, it was Jim Zorn. We weren't going to do anything anyway. But they really put us to shame in that game, and they put our season to shame as well. We were never the same after that game. 2012. I still vividly remember going to Pittsburgh and us trying a double pass with Robert Griffin III running down the sideline, and Ryan Clark disassembles him. I mean, crushes him on the sidelines. I remember in 2016, Antonio Brown twerking on us. It never ends well against this Steelers team. I've already talked about this. I'm not going to do this here because this is not a Washington show. Anyway, Kevin the PRF says, as well as myself was just as guilty of our roller coaster fan base. Check LT stream after the second Giants game and versus the second Cowboys game. We had a funeral, then a parade. That is not false, okay? That is not false. I know I put the season to bed because I didn't believe in Alex Smith. I put the season to bed after the second Giants game when we lost Kyle Allen. And the season was resurrected after the Lions game because after that game, I said, well, maybe Alex can do it. Maybe he can do it. And he's been pretty solid to this point. Still not, what you need to win consistently in this league, but it beats the alternative. It beats what we saw with the Ravens. Could you imagine if they were on their third quarterback right now? Sheesh. Excuse me. Gregory Lightbody says, the Steelers were actually overlooking the Ravens to pay attention to us. I think they might be overlooking us too. That's the only thing that I think can give us a chance is if they come into the game overconfident, like, okay, yeah, this team stinks. We should beat these guys with our eyes closed and one hand tied behind our back. That's the only way that I feel like we got a shot. Gregory Lightbody says, Big Ben is complaining about a 5-game stretch. He needs to calm down. His team is 11-0. No, that's what you want. You don't want guys to be complacent. Michael Jordan would always find something to complain about. He would find something to nitpick to give himself that edge. What should scare you more is if a guy is happy about his 5-game stretch. You want a guy complaining about a 5-game stretch despite being undefeated during that 5-game stretch. Because that shows you that he's not settling. He's not happy about where they are. He wants to be better. It's cool to go 11-0 in the regular season, but that's not the ultimate goal. That's not the ultimate prize. The Lombardi Trophy is what you're after. And if you're going to get there, you got to stay sharp. Mentally, physically, you got to be focused. You got to be dialed in. And you can't settle for anything less than perfection. So he has every right to be complaining about this 5-game stretch if he's not happy about it. And he should be. Even if he is happy, he should be complaining about it. Kevin, the PRF, says, the only thing I remember about 2012 were the ugliest bumblebee-ass throwback uniforms my eyes were wretched at. Yeah, those things are hideous. But again, they're from like the 1930s or 40s. So they look like a uniform from like the 30s or the 40s. So you got to keep it in its proper perspective. Anyway, we've hit our hour mark, if that makes any sense. We've hit our 1 hour mark. So, with that said, I am going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy your evening, the rest of your evening. Keep in mind that if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Go ahead, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, hit that like button. See 136 of you out there right now, only 36 likes. Let's get that like count up. Come on, hit that like button before you skedaddle. I will say this, wasn't pretty, but it was gritty. And most importantly, it was a dub. Steelers improved their record to a flawless 11-0 with the 19-14 victory. Let me reiterate that the score doesn't do this game any justice. The Steelers dominated this game 6 ways to Sunday. They allowed the Ravens to stay in this game with mistakes, and you got to credit the Ravens defensively for buckling down in some crucial situations, especially in the red zone, and forcing the Steelers to have to settle for 4 field goals. Roethlisberger missed a wide open target in the end zone on a 4th down on the second possession of the game rather, and they had opportunities. They didn't convert. They didn't convert on 3rd downs in the red zone, and hence they had to settle for field goals, and that left the door slightly ajar for the Ravens, and they made it interesting late, but too little, too late. Ravens fall 19-14 in this game. They're now 6-5, 3 straight losses. What is that? 3 straight losses for the Ravens, or is it 3 out of 4? Let's see. They lost to the Steelers. They beat the Colts. So it's 4 losses in the last 5 contests. So it's 3 straight losses and 4 out of their last 5. So this is a rough stretch. We haven't seen one of these stretches from the Ravens in quite some time. I think that's about to come to a screeching halt on on Tuesday next week versus the Dallas Cowboys. Remember, no Thursday night game this week. It's supposed to be Cowboys and Ravens. That's now been pushed to Tuesday next week. So we'll keep our eyes on that contest when it takes place. With that said, I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and check out the printchamps.com for some Louie T Network merch. We've got hats, we got beanies, we got hoodies, we got shirts, we got masks, we got it all. Check it out and go ahead and support your man Louie T in more ways than one. I thank you guys for joining me on this program. Ravens drop to 6-5. Steelers sweep the Ravens with the 19-14 win and improve to a sparkling 11-0 on the season. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Take care.